Hello there, and welcome to the Cozy Curiosity channel. I'm so glad you found your way here, because tonight we're embarking on a gentle journey through time itself. Wherever you are right now, let this be your moment to pause. Let the rush of the day fade away. Let your shoulders drop, and allow your thoughts to drift like clouds across an open sky. Tonight, we're tracing the quiet footsteps of evolution, the slow, patient force that shaped every living thing on Earth, including you. From the first spark of life in ancient oceans to the intricate patterns woven into your own DNA, evolution is the story of change, survival, and endless possibility. Some of what you hear might shift how you see yourself and the world around you. Other discoveries might simply float by like dandelion seeds on the wind, soft, curious, and peacefully memorable. If this kind of gentle wonder brings you comfort or sparks your curiosity, consider liking and subscribing. It helps others find this peaceful space, too, one sleepy soul at a time. And let me know in the comments where you are in the world and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see where people are listening from. But for now, settle in, take a deep breath, and let's begin this slow and soothing journey through the remarkable story of life's transformation on Earth. All life on Earth shares a common ancestor. Every creature you've ever encountered, from the smallest bacterium to the largest whale, from towering redwoods to delicate butterflies, traces back to a single origin point. Around 3.5 to 4 billion years ago, in the warm, shallow waters of the ancient Earth, life began. This common ancestor, sometimes called Luca, the last universal common ancestor, was likely a simple, single-celled organism. But within its microscopic form lay the genetic instructions that would eventually give rise to the entire tree of life. You shared DNA with roses, with eagles, with mushrooms and dolphins. Not by accident, but by inheritance. Every living thing is your distant cousin, separated by billions of years, but connected by an unbroken thread of survival. In your cells right now, ancient code still whispers stories from the very beginning of life itself. Evolution has no direction or goal. We often think of evolution as climbing a ladder, moving towards something better or more advanced. But evolution has no destination. It doesn't aim for intelligence or complexity. It simply responds to the environment, moment by moment, generation by generation. A trait survives if it helps an organism reproduce in its current surroundings. That's all. Sometimes this leads to greater complexity, like the human brain. Other times, it leads to elegant simplicity, like parasites that lose organs they no longer need. Evolution isn't progress, it's adaptation. A bacteria thriving in a thermal vent is just as evolved as you are, perfectly suited to its world. There is no finish line, no grand design, only the quiet, endless process of change responding to the needs of now. Your DNA is 98.8% identical to a chimpanzee's. Look in the mirror and you see a human. But beneath your skin, written in the language of genes, you are remarkably similar to a chimpanzee. You share 98.8% of your DNA with them. That small difference, just over 1%, accounts for everything that makes you distinctly human. Your language, your abstract thinking, your tool-making, your culture. But the vast majority of your genetic code is the same, instructing cells to divide, hearts to beat, lungs to breathe. This similarity isn't coincidence. It's evidence of shared ancestry. Around 6 to 7 million years ago, your lineage and the chimpanzee lineage split from a common ancestor. Since then, Small genetic changes accumulated slowly, like grains of sand forming dunes. And from those tiny differences emerged two species, each walking their own path through time. The fossil record shows clear transitional forms. For those who wonder if evolution really happened, the rocks themselves hold answers. Buried in layers of stone are fossils, snapshots of creatures caught between forms. Tiktaalik, for instance, lived around 375 million years ago. It had fins like a fish, but also sturdy wrist-like bones and a neck, features that would help its descendants walk on land. Archaeopteryx, from 150 million years ago, had feathers and wings like a bird, but also teeth and a bony tail like a dinosaur. These aren't missing links. They're beautiful examples of life in transition, caught in the act of becoming something new. The fossil record isn't perfect. Time erases much, but what remains tells a clear story of gradual change, of bodies adapting, experimenting, and diversifying across millions of years. Humans evolved in Africa. Your story, the human story, begins in Africa. Around 6 to 7 million years ago, in the forests and savannas of East Africa, the first members of the human lineage appeared. These early ancestors walked on two legs, a significant shift that freed their hands for carrying food, using tools, and eventually shaping the world. Over millions of years, many species of human relatives came and went. Australopithecus, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, each adapted to their environment, each contributing to the long chain of survival. Modern humans, Homo sapiens, emerged around 300,000 years ago in Africa. Then, starting around 70,000 years ago, small groups began migrating out of the continent, spreading across the globe. Every human alive today can trace their ancestry back to those African origins. Africa isn't just a place on a map. It's the cradle of humanity, the homeland written into your genes. Evolution happens in populations, not individuals. You won't evolve in your lifetime. Neither will your children. Evolution doesn't happen to individuals. It happens across generations within populations. Imagine a group of rabbits living in a snowy landscape. Some are born with slightly whiter fur due to random genetic variation. These rabbits blend into the snow better, avoiding predators more often. They survive longer, reproduce more, and pass on their genes. Over many generations, the population shifts. More white rabbits, fewer brown ones. That's evolution, a change in the frequency of traits in a population over time. It's not a choice. It's not effort. It's statistics, biology, and survival playing out across countless lives. One rabbit doesn't evolve, but the population does, shaped slowly by the pressures of the world around it. Natural selection is based on survival and reproduction. At the heart of evolution lies a simple, powerful principle: natural selection. It works like this. In any population, individuals vary. Some are faster, some stronger, some better camouflaged. Those with traits that help them survive and reproduce in their environment are more likely to pass those traits to the next generation. Those less suited may die young or have fewer offspring. Over time, helpful traits become more common. Harmful ones fade away. This isn't survival of the strongest or the smartest. It's survival of the well-adapted, those whose traits fit the moment. A bright, fast bird might thrive in open fields, but struggle in dense forests. Natural selection doesn't create perfection. It simply filters, quietly and constantly, shaping life to match the world it inhabits. Random mutations provide the raw material for evolution. Evolution needs variation to work with, and that variation comes from mutations, random changes in DNA. Most mutations are neutral, causing no noticeable effect. Some are harmful, reducing an organism's chances of survival. But occasionally, a mutation is beneficial. A slight change in a protein might improve efficiency. A small shift in coloration might provide better camouflage. These helpful mutations, when passed to offspring, give individuals an edge. Over time, they can spread through a population. Mutations aren't driven by need. They're accidents, copying errors, glitches in the genetic code. But from these tiny random errors, combined with natural selection, comes the staggering diversity of life. Chance and necessity working together across deep time, sculpting the living world. Evolution explains both unity and diversity in life. Look around and you see incredible variety. Whales and wasps, ferns and falcons. Yet beneath that diversity lies a deep unity. All life uses DNA. All life is made of cells. All life shares the same basic biochemistry. Evolution explains both. The unity comes from common ancestry. We all inherited the same fundamental toolkit from life's earliest forms. The diversity comes from adaptation. As populations spread into different environments, they faced different challenges. Over millions of years, they changed, diverged, and specialized. The result is a world bursting with different shapes, sizes, and strategies, all variations on ancient themes. Unity and diversity, two sides of the same coin, both written into the story of evolution. The age of Earth is about 4.5 billion years. To understand evolution, you need to grasp the immensity of time. The Earth formed around 4.5 billion years ago, cooling slowly from a molten ball into a planet with oceans and continents. For nearly 1 billion years, it was lifeless. Then, around 3.5 billion years ago, the first simple cells appeared. For billions of years, life was microscopic, invisible to the naked eye. Complex multicellular organisms didn't emerge until around 600 million years ago. Dinosaurs ruled for about 165 million years and vanished 66 million years ago. Modern humans appeared just 300,000 years ago, a blink in Earth's long history. When you hold a rock, you're touching something older than almost all life. Time, vast and patient, is the canvas on which evolution paints. Genetic drift causes evolution independent of natural selection. Not all evolutionary change comes from survival of the fittest. Sometimes, change happens by pure chance. This is called genetic drift. Imagine a small population of beetles. Some are red, some are blue. A storm wipes out half the population randomly. By luck, more red beetles survive than blue. Now red is more common, not because red was better, but because chance favored it. In small populations, genetic drift can be powerful, causing traits to rise or disappear regardless of their usefulness. Over generations, random fluctuations can shape evolution just as much as natural selection. It's a reminder that evolution isn't always about fitness. Sometimes it's just luck playing out across time. Humans still evolve today. Evolution didn't stop when humans developed agriculture or built cities. It continues quietly in every generation. In some populations, genetic changes have occurred in just the last few thousand years. For example, many people of European and African descent have evolved the ability to digest lactose, the sugar in milk, into adulthood. This trait spread because dairy farming became common, and those who could digest milk had a nutritional advantage. In high-altitude populations like Tibetans, genetic adaptations help them thrive in low-oxygen environments. Evolution is still shaping us, responding to modern diets, diseases, and lifestyles. The process is slow, But it hasn't stopped. You are part of an unfinished story, still being written generation by generation. Vestigial structures reveal evolutionary history. Your body carries remnants of your evolutionary past, structures that once served important functions but are now reduced or useless. These are called vestigial structures. You have a tailbone, the coccyx, a remnant of the tail your distant ancestors once had. You have wisdom teeth, leftovers from a time when human ancestors had larger jaws and ate tougher food. Whales have tiny hip bones buried in their bodies, remnants of legs their land-dwelling ancestors used millions of years ago. Snakes sometimes have tiny, useless limbs, echoes of their legged reptile ancestors. These structures don't make sense in terms of design, but they make perfect sense as evolutionary inheritance. Your body is a museum, carrying traces of forms you once were. Convergent evolution creates similar features independently. Sometimes evolution arrives at the same solution twice. This is called convergent evolution. Sharks, dolphins, and the extinct ichthyosaurs all developed streamlined bodies, fins and tails, perfect for swimming. But they aren't closely related. Sharks are fish, dolphins are mammals, and ichthyosaurs were reptiles. They evolved similar forms independently because water demands similar adaptations. Wings evolved separately in birds, bats, and insects, each from different structures. Eyes evolved independently dozens of times across the animal kingdom. The environment poses challenges, and life, working from different starting points, often finds similar answers. Convergent evolution shows that evolution is not random chaos. It's shaped by the consistent laws of physics and biology, sculpting life toward what works. Extinction is a natural part of evolution. Over 99% of all species that have ever lived are now extinct. Extinction isn't failure. It's part of the process. Environments change. Competitors arrive. Resources disappear. Species that can't adapt vanish. Sometimes extinction happens gradually. Other times, catastrophic events wipe out vast numbers of species at once. The asteroid that ended the dinosaurs' reign 66 million years ago also opened opportunities for mammals to diversify. Extinction creates ecological space. It allows new forms to emerge and experiment. Life doesn't mourn its losses. It moves forward, filling empty niches with new shapes and strategies. Every living thing today is the descendant of countless survivors, the lucky ones who made it through. Extinction is the shadow side of evolution, the eraser that clears the board for new possibilities. The eye evolved gradually through many stages. The human eye is often called a miracle of design, too complex to have evolved. But evolution doesn't build things all at once. It tinkers, adding small improvements over time. The eye evolved gradually, starting with simple, light-sensitive cells in early organisms. These cells help detect day and night, predator and prey. Over millions of years, these cells clustered into patches, then dipped into cups, focusing light better. Lenses formed, pupils adjusted, muscles developed to change focus. Each small step provided an advantage. Even a blurry image is better than none. Even detecting shadows helps survival. Today, eyes exist in many forms across the animal kingdom, each built from the same evolutionary toolkit, but shaped by different needs. The eye isn't a finished product. It's a work in progress, millions of years in the making. DNA evidence confirms evolutionary relationships. Before we could read DNA, scientists studied bones, comparing skulls and skeletons to trace evolutionary relationships. But DNA offers something far more precise. By comparing genetic sequences, scientists can see exactly how closely species are related. The more similar the DNA, the more recent the common ancestor. Humans and chimpanzees share nearly 99% of their DNA, confirming they split recently in evolutionary terms. Humans and mice share about 85%, reflecting a much older divergence. DNA also reveals hidden relationships. Whales are more closely related to hippos than to fish. Birds are living dinosaurs, descended from theropods. DNA doesn't just support evolution. It provides a molecular clock, measuring time through mutations and showing the exact branching of the tree of life. Islands are natural laboratories of evolution. Isolated islands, cut off from continents, become workshops of evolutionary change. Animals and plants that arrive on islands face new environments and no competition from mainland species. Over time, they adapt in striking ways. The Galapagos Islands, which helped inspire Darwin's theory, are home to finches with different beak shapes, each suited to different foods. Flightless birds evolved on islands without predators, losing the ability to fly because it was no longer needed. Giant tortoises, dwarf elephants, unique plants, all are products of island evolution. Islands are like natural experiments, showing how isolation, environment, and time can transform life into forms found nowhere else on Earth. Each island tells its own evolutionary story, written in feathers, leaves, and shells. Artificial selection demonstrates evolutionary principles. Long before Darwin, humans were shaping evolution, though they didn't realize it. Through artificial selection, humans chose which animals and plants to breed, favoring traits they found useful or beautiful. Wolves became dogs, wild grasses became wheat and corn, wild cabbage became broccoli, kale, and cauliflower, all from the same ancestor. Pigeons, cows, roses, goldfish. Humans sculpted them through selective breeding. This isn't natural selection, but it works the same way. Choose which individuals reproduce, and over generations, you change the population. Darwin saw artificial selection as evidence that selection, natural or otherwise, could produce profound change. What humans did in thousands of years, nature does across millions, with no guiding hand, only survival. The fossil record shows mass extinctions. Earth's history is punctuated by mass extinctions, moments when the majority of species disappeared in geologically short time spans. 5 major mass extinctions have occurred, each reshaping life profoundly. The most famous, 66 million years ago, wiped out the non-avian dinosaurs. But the worst was the Permian-Triassic extinction, 252 million years ago, which killed over 90% of marine species and 70% of land species. Causes varied: volcanic eruptions or asteroid impacts, climate shifts, oxygen depletion. Each time, life was nearly erased, and each time, survivors filled the empty world with new forms. Mass extinctions are catastrophes, but they're also opportunities, clearing the stage for new actors. Today, some scientists believe we're in a 6th mass extinction, driven not by asteroids, but by human activity. Evolution does not have foresight. Evolution cannot plan. It doesn't see the future. It only works with what exists now, favoring traits that help survival and reproduction in the current environment. This leads to imperfections. The human spine, for instance, evolved from ancestors that walked on 4 legs. Now that we walk upright, it's not perfectly suited to bearing vertical weight, leading to back pain. The recurrent laryngeal nerve in giraffes loops all the way down the neck to the chest and back up to the larynx. a detour that makes sense only in terms of evolutionary history, not efficient design. Evolution is a tinkerer, not an engineer. It builds with what's available, modifying old structures for new uses. The result is life that works, but often carries the marks of its long, winding history. Adaptation does not mean perfection. Every organism is adapted to its environment, but that doesn't mean it's perfect. Adaptations are compromises, trade-offs shaped by constraints. A cheetah was built for speed, but it sacrifices strength. It can run faster than almost any animal, but it's vulnerable to larger predators. A peacock's extravagant tail attracts mates, but it also makes flight difficult and attracts predators. Evolution favors what works well enough to survive and reproduce, not what's optimal. Environments change, new competitors arrive, and old adaptations may become burdens. Adaptation is always a work in progress, shaped by history, limited by genetics, and subject to the shifting demands of the world. Good enough is enough. Perfection is not required. Coevolution shapes relationships between species. Evolution doesn't happen in isolation. Species evolve in response to each other, shaping and reshaping one another over time. This is called coevolution. Flowers and their pollinators are a classic example. As flowers evolved colors, shapes, and scents to attract bees. Bees evolved better color vision and longer tongues to reach nectar. Predators and prey are locked in evolutionary arms races. As prey evolve better defenses like camouflage or speed, predators evolve sharper senses and faster reflexes. Parasites and hosts, plants and herbivores, all are tangled in coevolutionary dances, each pushing the other to adapt. In this web of life, no species evolves alone. Every change ripples outward, influencing and being influenced by the species it touches. Sexual selection drives evolution of display traits. Not all evolution is about survival. Some is about attraction. Sexual selection occurs when traits evolve because they help an individual attract mates, even if they don't help survival, and sometimes hinder it. The peacock's tail is a burden, making escape difficult. But peahens prefer males with large, vibrant tails, so those males reproduce more. Antlers in deer, songs in birds, bright colors in fish. These evolve not for survival, but for courtship. Sometimes what mates find attractive becomes exaggerated over generations, leading to ornate, even bizarre features. Sexual selection reminds us that evolution is driven not just by avoiding death, but by winning the competition to reproduce. Beauty, from an evolutionary perspective, is just another strategy for passing on genes. Endosymbiosis gave rise to complex cells. Around 2 billion years ago, something extraordinary happened. A large single-celled organism engulfed a smaller one, perhaps intending to digest it. But instead of dying, the smaller cell survived inside, and the two began cooperating. The smaller cell provided energy, and the larger cell provided protection. Over time, the engulfed cell became a permanent resident, evolving into what we now call mitochondria, the powerhouses of the cell. A similar event gave plant cells chloroplasts, the structures that perform photosynthesis. This process, called endosymbiosis, was one of the most important evolutionary leaps in history. It created complex cells, the foundation for all plants, animals, and fungi. You are, in a very real sense, a community of ancient collaborators. Your cells powered by descendants of once independent organisms. Evolution explains antibiotic resistance. Antibiotics have saved millions of lives, but bacteria are evolving resistance. Here's how it works. When you take an antibiotic, it kills most bacteria, but not all. A few, by random mutation, might have slight resistance. These survivors reproduce, passing on their resistance. If antibiotics are overused or misused, resistant bacteria spread. Over time, entire populations become resistant, and the antibiotic stops working. This is evolution in action, natural selection happening before our eyes. Bacteria reproduce quickly, so they evolve quickly, adapting to drugs in just years or decades. It's a reminder that evolution is not a relic of the past. It's happening now, in hospitals, in your body, in every environment where life faces pressure and finds a way to survive. Speciation occurs when populations can no longer interbreed. A species is often defined by its ability to interbreed and produce fertile offspring. But how does one species become two? The answer is speciation, and it usually begins with separation. A river changes course. A mountain rises. A group of birds is blown to an island. Populations split. Over time, isolated populations face different environments, different pressures. They evolve independently. Mutations accumulate. Behaviors change. Eventually, even if they meet again, they can no longer interbreed successfully. They've become separate species. Sometimes speciation happens quickly, in thousands of years. Sometimes it takes millions. But the result is the branching tree of life. One species splitting into two, again and again, creating the diversity we see today. Ring species show evolution in action. Imagine a species of bird that lives around a mountain range. On the eastern side and western side, the birds look and sound slightly different, but they can still interbreed where they meet in the north and south. However, if you follow the populations all the way around the ring, the birds at the two ends can no longer interbreed, even though all the populations in between can. This is a ring species, a rare and beautiful snapshot of evolution in progress. It shows that species boundaries aren't always clear. There are no sharp lines, only gradual change. The populations are connected by a chain of interbreeding, yet the ends of the chain are distinct species. It's evolution caught in the act, neither fully one nor fully two, but something in between. Parallel evolution occurs in similar environments. Sometimes, unrelated species in similar environments evolve similar traits independently. This is parallel evolution, subtly different from convergent evolution. For instance, marsupials in Australia and placental mammals on other continents evolved similar forms. There are marsupial moles and placental moles, marsupial wolves and placental wolves, each pair filling similar ecological roles, but evolving separately. The environments posed similar challenges. Digging, hunting, climbing, and evolution found similar solutions. Parallel evolution shows that evolutionary pathways are often constrained by the physics and biology of life. There are only so many ways to be a predator, an herbivore, or a digger. Evolution, working with different raw materials, still arrives at familiar designs. Evolutionary theory unifies all biology. In 1973, geneticist Theodosius Dobzhansky wrote that nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution. He was right. Evolution is the thread that connects every field of biology. It explains why organisms look the way they do, why diseases emerge, why ecosystems function as they do. It connects anatomy, genetics, ecology, behavior, and development into one coherent framework. Without evolution, biology is just a collection of facts. With evolution, it becomes a story, a narrative of change, adaptation, and relationship spanning billions of years. Whether you're studying bacteria or blue whales, flowers or fungi, evolution is the context that makes sense of it all. Homologous structures show common ancestry. Look at your hand. 5 fingers, branching from a palm. Now, picture a bat's wing, a whale's flipper, a horse's front leg. Underneath, the bone structure is remarkably similar. Same basic pattern, same number of bones, just modified for different functions. These are homologous structures, features that look different but share a common evolutionary origin. They reveal that bats, whales, horses, and humans all descended from a common ancestor with a 5-digit limb. Evolution didn't start from scratch each time. It remodeled what already existed, stretching bones here, fusing them there, adapting the same blueprint to different ways of life. Your hand and a whale's flipper are cousins, shaped by time and necessity from the same ancient template. Embryology reveals evolutionary relationships. If you look at embryos of different animals, fish, chickens, pigs, humans early in development, they look strikingly similar. They all have gill-like structures, tails, and similar body plans. As they develop, these features diverge. Fish keep the gills. Humans lose the tail. This similarity, early in development, reflects shared evolutionary ancestry. All vertebrates inherited the same basic developmental toolkit from a common ancestor. Over time, evolution tinkered with how that toolkit is used, leading to the diversity of adult forms. But the embryo still remembers. It briefly retraces the path evolution took, a fleeting glimpse of the past written into the process of growth. Evolutionary psychology explores human behavior. Why do we fear snakes more than cars, even though cars are more dangerous? Why do we crave sugar and fat? Why do we care for our children so intensely? Evolutionary psychology seeks to understand human behavior through the lens of evolution. Our brains, like our bodies, are products of natural selection, shaped by the environments our ancestors faced. Behaviors that helped survival and reproduction were favored. Fear of snakes made sense in a world where venomous snakes were common threats. Craving calorie-dense foods made sense when food was scarce. Not every behavior is adaptive now, but many are echoes of challenges faced long ago. Understanding evolution helps us understand ourselves, not as blank slates, but as creatures with ancient instincts. Evolution shaped our senses. Your senses, what you see, hear, taste, smell, and feel, are not universal perceptions of reality. They're evolutionary adaptations, tuned to what mattered for survival. Humans see colors well because our fruit-eating ancestors needed to spot ripe fruit against green leaves. Dogs smell far better because their ancestors hunted by scent. Bats echolocate because they hunt in darkness. Sharks sense electric fields to find prey hidden in sand. Each species experiences a different slice of reality, shaped by the challenges it faced. There's no one true way to sense the world. Evolution tailored each species' senses to its needs. Your perception of reality is just one version, beautifully designed for a world your ancestors once navigated. Migration patterns are shaped by evolution. Every year, billions of animals embark on journeys, often traveling thousands of miles. Monarch butterflies migrate from North America to Mexico. Arctic terns fly from pole to pole. Wildebeests cross African plains in search of water. These migrations aren't learned. They're instinctive, encoded in genes, shaped by evolution over countless generations. Migration evolves when the benefits, access to food, breeding grounds, favorable climates, outweigh the costs, energy, danger, and time. The routes are refined over time, optimized by natural selection. Those who migrate successfully pass on their genes. Those who don't perish. Migration is a testament to evolution's power to shape behavior, guiding creatures across continents, with nothing but inherited instructions written in DNA. Evolutionary medicine improves healthcare. Understanding evolution isn't just academic, it has practical applications in medicine. Why do we get sick? Often it's because our bodies evolved for environments very different from modern life. Our ancestors faced starvation, not obesity. They walked miles daily, not sat in chairs. Evolutionary medicine asks why our bodies are vulnerable to certain diseases and how evolution shaped those vulnerabilities. For example, sickle cell anemia persists because carrying one copy of the gene provides resistance to malaria. Morning sickness in pregnancy may protect the developing fetus from harmful foods. Even aging, once rare when predators and disease killed most people young, is now common because evolution didn't optimize for longevity past reproductive years. Understanding evolution helps doctors treat not just symptoms, but root causes. The speed of evolution varies. Evolution isn't a clock ticking at a steady pace. Sometimes it's slow, imperceptible over millions of years. Other times, it's rapid, producing dramatic change in just thousands of years or even less. When environments are stable, evolution slows. Species are already well adapted, and little changes. But when environments shift, a climate change, a new predator, a vacant niche, evolution accelerates. After mass extinctions, surviving species often diversify rapidly, filling empty roles. This is called adaptive radiation. The fossil record shows long periods of stasis punctuated by bursts of change, a pattern known as punctuated equilibrium. Evolution is patient, but when opportunity or crisis strikes, it can move with surprising speed. Evolutionary arms races drive rapid adaptation. In nature, some relationships are battles, and these battles drive evolution at high speed. Predators evolve to become better hunters, so prey evolve better defenses. Then predators improve again, and the cycle continues. This is an evolutionary arms race. Cheetahs became faster, so gazelles became faster. Toxic plants evolved, so herbivores evolved the ability to detoxify. Bacteria develop antibiotic resistance, so we develop new antibiotics. These races never end. There's no final victory, only endless adaptation. Arms races produce some of the most impressive and specialized traits in nature, each side pushing the other to evolve faster, locked in a dance where standing still means extinction. Time sixes. Neutral theory explains molecular evolution. Not all genetic changes are driven by natural selection. Many mutations are neutral, neither helpful nor harmful. They simply drift through population by chance. This is the neutral theory of molecular evolution, proposed by Motu Kimura. At the molecular level, much of evolution is random. Neutral mutations accumulate over time, creating genetic variation without affecting survival. This theory doesn't deny natural selection's importance, but it adds nuance. Not every difference between species is adaptive. Some are just noise, leftovers of random change. Neutral theory helps scientists understand genetic diversity and use DNA as a molecular clock, estimating when species diverged based on the accumulation of neutral mutations. Evolutionary constraints limit possibilities. Evolution is powerful, but it's not unlimited. It can't build every imaginable form. It's constrained by history, by the laws of physics, and by the materials it has to work with. For example, No vertebrate has evolved wheels, even though wheels would be useful, because evolution can't build rotating joints disconnected from the circulatory and nervous systems. Birds can't become as large as elephants without bones too heavy to allow flight. Evolution works within constraints, building on what came before, limited by development, genetics, and the possible. It's creative, but not magical. The forms we see aren't all possible forms, just the ones that evolution, working within its limits, could produce. Evolution is ongoing in all species. Evolution isn't something that happened once, long ago. It's happening right now, in every population, in every generation. Viruses evolve to escape immune systems. Insects evolve resistance to pesticides. Fish evolve in polluted rivers. Plants adapt to urban environments. And yes, humans continue to evolve too, though slowly. Every mutation, every birth, every death is part of the process. Evolution is the background hum of life, constant and inevitable. As long as there is variation, reproduction, and selection, evolution will continue, shaping life in response to an ever-changing world. It doesn't pause. It doesn't rest. It simply is, woven into the very fabric of being alive. Evolutionary biology is a predictive science. Some say evolution is just a historical science, explaining the past, but unable to predict the future. But that's not quite true. Evolutionary biology makes testable predictions. If evolution is true, we should find certain fossils in certain rock layers. And we do. DNA comparisons should match patterns predicted by anatomy, and they do. Populations under selection pressure should change in predictable ways, and they do. Scientists use evolutionary theory to predict how diseases will evolve, how pests will develop resistance, even where to find transitional fossils. Evolution isn't just storytelling. It's a framework that generates hypotheses, makes predictions, and has been tested and confirmed countless times. It's science in the truest sense, grounded in evidence and open to refinement. Evolution and development are intertwined. How does a single fertilized egg become a complex organism? Development, the process of growth from embryo to adult, is guided by genes, but those genes were shaped by evolution. Changes in developmental timing or gene expression can produce major evolutionary shifts. For example, differences in the timing of when skull bones fuse contributed to the evolution of large human brains. Small changes in how genes are activated during development can lead to dramatic differences in adult form. This field, called evolutionary developmental biology, or EvoDevo, reveals that evolution doesn't just tinker with adult traits, it tinkers with the developmental recipes that build those traits. By understanding how development works, scientists gain insight into how new forms evolve. Altruism can evolve through kin selection. Why would an animal help another at its own expense? Evolution favors selfishness, right? Not always. Altruism can evolve through kin selection. When you help a relative, you're helping someone who shares your genes. A bee that sacrifices itself to protect the hive is protecting its sisters, who carry many of the same genes. Parents care for offspring. Siblings help each other, all because aiding relatives increases the chance that shared genes will survive. This is summarized in Hamilton's rule. Altruism evolves when the benefit to relatives, weighted by genetic relatedness, outweighs the cost to the individual. Even selflessness can evolve when it serves genetic survival. Altruism isn't pure kindness. It's evolution, favoring genes that help copies of themselves. Social behavior evolves through group selection and reciprocity. Humans are extraordinarily social. We cooperate, form communities, follow norms. How did this evolve? Partly through kin selection, but also through reciprocity and group dynamics. Reciprocal altruism means I help you now, expecting you'll help me later. Cheaters, those who take but don't give, can be punished or excluded. Groups with more cooperators may outcompete groups with more cheaters, a form of group selection. Our social instincts, empathy, fairness, punishment of wrongdoers, were shaped by evolution in social environments where cooperation paid off. We're wired to work together, not because we're inherently good, but because evolution favored those who could navigate complex social worlds. Evolution explains the origin of multicellularity. For billions of years, life was single-celled. Then, around 600 million years ago, multicellular organisms appeared. How did this leap occur? It likely began with simple cooperation. Single cells that stuck together after dividing had advantages. They could be larger, harder to eat, better at gathering resources. Over time, cells began specializing. Some became better at feeding, others at reproduction. This division of labor made the group more efficient. Eventually, the cells became so interdependent they couldn't survive alone. They were no longer a colony. They were an organism. Multicellularity evolved independently many times, in plants, animals, fungi, and algae. It's one of evolution's great innovations, turning cooperating cells into complex beings like you. The molecular clock dates evolutionary events. DNA mutates at a roughly constant rate over time, like a molecular clock. By comparing the DNA of two species and counting differences, scientists can estimate when they diverged from a common ancestor. The more differences, the longer ago they split. This technique has revolutionized evolutionary biology, allowing scientists to date events even when fossils are scarce. It's how we know humans and chimpanzees diverged around 6 million years ago. It's how we traced all humans back to African ancestors. The molecular clock isn't perfect. Mutation rates vary, but it's a powerful tool, turning genetic sequences into timelines, revealing the hidden history written in every cell. Evolution produces both simplicity and complexity. Evolution can lead to greater complexity, eyes, brains, multicellularity, but it can also lead to simplification. Parasites often lose organs they no longer need. Tapeworms living inside hosts lost their digestive systems because they absorb nutrients directly. Cave-dwelling fish lost their eyes because vision is useless in darkness. Flightless birds lost the ability to fly when it was no longer advantageous. Evolution doesn't favor complexity for its own sake. It favors what works. If simplicity is more efficient, evolution will simplify. The result is a mix. Some lineages growing more complex, others streamlining. Evolution is pragmatic, sculpting life to fit the demands of survival, whether that means adding or subtracting. Evolutionary biology informs conservation. Protecting endangered species requires understanding evolution. Small populations lose genetic diversity, making them vulnerable to disease and environmental change. Conservation geneticists use evolutionary principles to maintain diversity, manage breeding programs, and prevent inbreeding. Understanding evolutionary relationships helps prioritize which species to save. Protecting a unique lineage preserves more evolutionary history than protecting one of many similar species. Evolution also warns us. Rapid environmental change, like habitat destruction and climate change, can outpace species' ability to adapt, leading to extinction. Conservation isn't just about saving cute animals. It's about preserving the evolutionary processes and diversity that sustain ecosystems. Evolutionary theory has been extensively tested. Some claim evolution is just a theory, as if that makes it uncertain. But in science, a theory is an explanation supported by vast amounts of evidence. Evolutionary theory has been tested in labs, fields, and fossil beds for over 150 years. Every test has supported it. Predictions about fossils, DNA, biogeography, and development have been confirmed again and again. No evidence has fundamentally contradicted evolution. Scientists debate details, mechanisms, and timing, but the core principle that life evolves through descent with modification is as well established as any scientific fact. Gravity is a theory, germ theory is a theory, evolution is a theory, and all are true. Humans share genetic code with all life. The genetic code, the way DNA is translated into proteins, is nearly universal. The same triplet of DNA letters codes for the same amino acid in bacteria, plants, and humans. This universality is powerful, evidence of common ancestry. If life arose independently multiple times, we'd expect different genetic codes. But we don't see that. The code is shared because it was inherited from the first living cell. This also means genes can be transferred between species. Scientists can insert human genes into bacteria, and the bacteria will produce human proteins because the code is the same. You are, at the molecular level, kin to every living thing. The language of life is universal. Evolution shaped human intelligence. The human brain is evolution's most complex creation. Why did such intelligence evolve? Our ancestors faced challenges that rewarded cognitive abilities, making tools, cooperating in groups, communicating, solving problems. Those who could think ahead, remember past events, and understand others' intentions had survival advantages. Social life was particularly demanding. Navigating alliances, detecting deception, and coordinating hunts required mental flexibility. Over millions of years, brains grew larger, especially the neocortex, the region responsible for higher thought. Intelligence isn't a single trait, but a collection of adaptations for dealing with complex social and physical environments. Your ability to read this, to ponder, to imagine, is the product of countless generations facing challenges that favored the clever. Speciation can happen without geographic separation. Usually, speciation requires populations to be separated by distance or barriers. But sometimes new species can arise without isolation. This is called sympatric speciation. It's rare but documented. For example, some species of fish in the same lake diverge into separate species by specializing on different food sources. Over time, they stop interbreeding, perhaps because they prefer different mates or breed at different times. Sympatric speciation shows that evolution is creative. Even within the same environment, populations can find ways to split, carving out distinct niches and identities. The tree of life branches not just across continents, but within ponds, forests, and fields. Evolution explains the distribution of species. Why are marsupials mostly in Australia? Why are lemurs only in Madagascar? Biogeography, the study of where species live, makes sense only through evolution. Species evolve in specific places and spread from there. Continental drift split populations. Islands isolated groups. Mountain ranges and rivers became barriers. The distribution of species reflects their evolutionary history, showing where they originated, how they migrated, and where barriers prevented movement. Fossils confirm this. Extinct marsupials are found in South America and Antarctica, showing they once lived there before continents drifted apart. Biogeography is a map of evolution, showing not just where species are, but how they got there. The origin of life is distinct from evolution. Evolution explains how life diversified and changed over time, but it doesn't explain how life began. The origin of life, abiogenesis, is a separate question. Scientists hypothesize that life arose from non-living chemistry, perhaps in hydrothermal vents or shallow pools, where simple molecules combined into more complex ones, eventually forming self-replicating molecules like RNA. This process is still being studied. It's uncertain and difficult to test, but it's important to understand that evolution starts after life exists. It requires reproduction, variation, and selection. The origin of life is chemistry becoming biology. Evolution is biology becoming diversity, two related but distinct mysteries. Evolutionary theory has practical applications. Evolution isn't just abstract knowledge. It has real-world uses. Medicine relies on evolution to understand disease. Agriculture uses evolutionary principles to breed crops and livestock. Pest control must account for the evolution of resistance. Computer scientists use evolutionary algorithms to solve complex problems, letting programs mutate and selecting the best solutions. Conservation biology uses evolution to protect species. Even industry benefits. Understanding how enzymes evolve helps biotech companies design better drugs. Evolution is a tool, a lens, a framework that informs countless fields. It's not just about the past. It's about understanding the living world and working with it, not against it. Human evolution did not stop at modern Homo sapiens. Humans have continued to evolve over the past 300,000 years, and especially in the last 10,000 years since agriculture began. Changes in diet, like the spread of dairy farming, led to lactose tolerance in some populations. Living in high altitudes led to genetic adaptations in Tibetans and Andean people. Resistance to diseases like malaria shaped genes in African and Mediterranean populations. Even brain genes show signs of recent selection. Evolution is not a ladder with humans at the top. We are still evolving, subtly, in response to the environments we've created. Culture and technology don't stop evolution. They change the pressures, and evolution responds, as it always has. Evolution is not goal-oriented. Evolution has no plan, no purpose, no endpoint. It does not strive toward intelligence, complexity, or any ideal form. It simply responds to immediate pressures, favoring whatever helps organisms survive and reproduce right now. If the environment changes, the direction of evolution changes. There is no progress in an absolute sense, only adaptation to the current moment. Bacteria are not less evolved than humans. They are differently evolved, perfectly suited to their niches. Evolution is not climbing toward perfection. It's wandering through possibility space, exploring what works, discarding what doesn't. The path it takes is shaped by chance, necessity, and history, not by any guiding vision. Sexual reproduction accelerates evolution. Why do most complex organisms reproduce sexually when asexual reproduction is simpler and faster? Sexual reproduction shuffles genes, creating offspring that are genetically unique. This variation is evolution's fuel. In a changing environment, some offspring may be better suited than others. Asexual reproduction produces clones, limiting adaptability. Sexual reproduction introduces new combinations every generation, increasing the chances that some individuals will survive new challenges. It also helps purge harmful mutations. Sexual reproduction has costs, finding mates, investing energy in courtship, but the evolutionary benefits, speed of adaptation and genetic diversity, outweigh them. It's why sex, despite being costly, is nearly universal among complex life. Co-option is a key mechanism in evolution. Evolution often repurposes old structures for new functions. This is called co-option or exaptation. Feathers, for instance, likely evolved first for insulation or display, not flight. Only later were they co-opted for flight. Bones in the mammalian ear evolved from jaw bones in ancient reptiles. Lungs may have originated as swim bladders in fish. Evolution doesn't invent from scratch. It tinkers with what exists, borrowing and modifying. This explains why organisms have features that seem awkward or inefficient. They weren't designed for their current use. They were inherited from ancestors and adapted over time. Evolution is an improviser, making do with the tools at hand. Evolutionary theory guides synthetic biology. Synthetic biology aims to design new organisms or biological systems. But even in this cutting-edge field, evolution is central. Scientists use evolutionary principles to engineer bacteria that produce insulin, algae that make biofuels, or yeast that synthesize medicines. They can't design organisms from scratch. Instead, they modify existing ones, guided by evolutionary knowledge. They evolve enzymes in the lab, selecting for improved function. They use directed evolution to create proteins with new capabilities. Synthetic biology doesn't bypass evolution. It harnesses it, accelerating natural processes to create useful innovations. Evolution remains the foundation, even when humans are in the driver's seat. Evolution is testable and falsifiable. A good scientific theory must be testable and potentially falsifiable. Evolutionary theory meets this standard. Darwin himself said that finding a fossil rabbit in Precambrian rock, before rabbits could have evolved, would disprove his theory. If DNA comparisons showed random relationships unrelated to anatomy, evolution would be in trouble. If no transitional fossils were ever found, it would be problematic. But none of these things have happened. Every test has confirmed evolutionary predictions. Fossil sequences match expectations. DNA relationships align with physical traits. Evolution is supported not by faith, but by evidence that could, in principle, prove it wrong. The fact that it hasn't been disproven, despite 150 years of testing, speaks to its strength. Evolutionary insights reshape our worldview. Before Darwin, the living world seemed static, created in its present form. Evolution revealed that life is dynamic, constantly changing, connected across deep time. This shift transformed not just biology, but philosophy, ethics, and how we see ourselves. We are not separate from nature. We are part of it, shaped by the same forces that shaped every other organism. We are kin to all life, descended from common ancestors, built from the same molecular toolkit. This realization can be humbling, unsettling, or awe-inspiring. It connects us to the deep history of Earth and to every creature that shares it. Evolution is more than a scientific theory. It's a new way of understanding existence itself. Evolutionary theory continues to develop. Evolution is not a finished theory frozen in the 19th century. It's a living science, constantly refined by new discoveries. Darwin knew nothing of DNA, mutations, or genes. Modern evolutionary theory, often called the modern synthesis, combines Darwin's natural selection with genetics, molecular biology, and paleontology. Recent advances include evo-devo, epigenetics, and understanding horizontal gene transfer in microbes. Scientists debate mechanisms, the importance of genetic drift versus selection, the role of developmental constraints. But these debates occur within the framework of evolution. The core idea remains solid. Life evolves. The details of how, when, and why continue to be explored, tested, and deepened. Evolution connects us to the cosmos. The atoms in your body were forged in stars billions of years ago. When those stars died, they scattered those atoms into space. Eventually, they came together in the solar system, on Earth, and into living things. Evolution took those ancient atoms and shaped them, through billions of years, into bacteria, fish, reptiles, mammals, and finally you. Your existence is the product of cosmic and biological evolution, star death and natural selection, chance and necessity. You are made of stardust, but also of history, of every organism that survived long enough to pass on its genes. You are a thread in the vast tapestry of life, woven from the same elements and processes that built galaxies and shaped the living world. Evolution shaped cooperation and conflict. Life isn't just competition. Cooperation is everywhere, from cells working together in your body, to bees in a hive, to humans in societies. Evolution explains both. Cooperation evolves when it benefits the individuals involved, directly or indirectly. But conflict arises when interests diverge. Cells sometimes mutate and become cancerous, pursuing their own reproduction at the body's expense. Social insects sometimes cheat, laying eggs when they shouldn't. Humans cooperate in groups, but compete between groups. Evolution shaped us for both cooperation and conflict, depending on context. Understanding this helps us see that neither selfishness nor altruism is more natural. Both are part of the evolutionary story, strategies shaped by the challenges faced over millions of years. Evolution happens in genes, expressed in organisms. Evolution is often described as change in populations over time, but ultimately, it's change in the frequency of genes. Genes carry the instructions for building organisms. Mutations change genes. Natural selection favors some gene variants over others. Over generations, the genetic makeup of a population shifts, but evolution is also expressed in organisms. Genes don't exist in isolation. They interact with environments, with other genes, and with developmental processes. The same gene in different contexts can produce different traits. Evolution is both microscopic, happening in DNA, and macroscopic, visible in bodies and behaviors. It's the link between invisible molecular changes and the visible diversity of life. Evolutionary history is written in embryos. In the 19th century, scientists noticed that embryos of different species look remarkably similar early in development. A human embryo has structures that resemble gills, like a fish embryo. This puzzled many, until evolution provided the answer. Development recapitulates, in modified form, evolutionary history. You don't become a fish in the womb, but your developmental program still carries instructions inherited from fish ancestors, later modified for mammalian life. Gill-like structures in human embryos become parts of the ear and throat. These developmental echoes reveal your ancestry, a reminder that evolution doesn't erase the past. It builds upon it, layer by layer, generation by generation. Evolution is the foundation of modern biology. Ask any biologist what unifies their field, and they'll point to evolution. It connects genetics, ecology, anatomy, behavior, and biochemistry. It explains why organisms are the way they are, why diseases evolve, why ecosystems function, why species go extinct. Without evolution, biology is a scattered collection of observations. With evolution, it's a coherent science. Dobzhansky's famous statement bears repeating: nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution. It's not just one idea among many, it's the framework that makes sense of life. And after more than a century and a half of rigorous testing, it stands stronger than ever. Evolution produced the diversity of life from simple beginnings. Life began with single cells, invisible to the naked eye. For over 2 billion years, that's all there was. Simple, microscopic organisms floating in ancient seas. Then, gradually, life experimented. Cells began cooperating, forming colonies. Some colonies became so integrated, they became multicellular organisms. From there, the floodgates opened. Life diversified into an explosion of forms. In a period called the Cambrian explosion, around 540 million years ago, most major animal body plans appeared within a relatively short geological span. Suddenly, there were creatures with shells, with eyes, with segments, with limbs. From one origin, from simple beginnings, evolution produced the bewildering variety we see today. Millions of species, each with its own story, all branches on the same ancient tree. Genetic recombination increases variation. During sexual reproduction, something remarkable happens. Your parents' chromosomes don't just get passed to you intact, they shuffle, exchanging segments in a process called recombination, or crossing over. This means every egg and sperm cell is unique, carrying a novel mix of genetic material. Even siblings, except identical twins, are genetically distinct. Recombination vastly increases variation, giving natural selection more to work with. It's one reason sexually reproducing species can adapt quickly to changing environments. Each generation is a genetic lottery, and some combinations hit the jackpot, thriving where others falter. Recombination is evolution's way of constantly reshuffling the deck, dealing new hands with every birth. The founder effect can lead to rapid evolution. Sometimes a small group breaks away from a larger population and establishes itself elsewhere. This small founding group carries only a fraction of the original population's genetic diversity. By chance, certain traits become more common, while others disappear entirely. This is the founder effect, and it can lead to rapid evolutionary change. The new population evolves differently than the original, shaped by the limited gene pool it started with. Island populations often show founder effects. A few birds blown off course can found an entire new island population, genetically distinct from their mainland cousins. It's evolution accelerated by chance and isolation. Bottlenecks reduce genetic diversity. Sometimes a population crashes dramatically, whether from disease, disaster, or environmental change. Only a small number survive. This is called a population bottleneck, and it has lasting effects. The survivors carry only a fraction of the original genetic diversity. As the population rebounds, it remains genetically impoverished. Cheetahs went through a severe bottleneck thousands of years ago, and today all cheetahs are remarkably similar genetically, almost like siblings. This lack of diversity makes them vulnerable to disease and environmental change. Bottlenecks remind us that evolution isn't always about gaining. Sometimes it's about losing, and those losses can echo through time, constraining future evolutionary possibilities. Evolution shaped the human hand for tool use. Your hand is a marvel of evolutionary engineering. Unlike other primates, humans have a precision grip, able to touch the tip of the thumb to the tip of each finger. This allows for delicate manipulation, essential for making and using tools. Our ancestors' hands evolved for climbing, grasping branches, but as they spent more time on the ground and began using tools, natural selection favored those with more dexterous hands. Over millions of years, hands became more refined, capable of crafting stone tools, sewing clothing, and eventually writing, painting, and typing. Your ability to hold a pen, tie a knot, or press a button is the result of evolutionary changes that began millions of years ago, driven by the survival advantage that tools provided. Darwin's finches illustrate adaptive radiation. When Charles Darwin visited the Galapagos Islands, he found finches that looked similar but had different beak shapes. Some had large, thick beaks for cracking seeds. Others had thin, pointed beaks for catching insects. Still others had medium-sized beaks for various foods. These finches all descended from a single ancestor species that arrived on the islands long ago. In the absence of competition, they diversified rapidly, each population adapting to a different food source. This is adaptive radiation, the rapid evolution of diverse species from a common ancestor, each filling a different ecological niche. It's evolution's way of exploring possibilities, sending descendants down different paths to see what works. Evolution explains why we age. Aging seems counterintuitive. Why would evolution create bodies that deteriorate and die? The answer is that evolution favors traits that help you survive and reproduce during your fertile years, but it doesn't care much about what happens after. Genes that benefit you early in life, but cause problems later, can still be favored by natural selection. This is called antagonistic pleiotropy. For example, a gene that boosts early growth might increase cancer risk later. In the wild, most animals die young from predators, disease, or starvation. They don't live long enough to experience aging. So evolution never optimized for longevity. Aging is a side effect of evolution's focus on early reproduction, a reminder that natural selection is short-sighted, caring only about passing genes to the next generation. Evolutionary theory explains vestigial behaviors. Just as bodies carry vestigial structures, behaviors can also be vestigial, remnants of evolutionary history. Domestic dogs circle before lying down, a behavior inherited from wild ancestors who flattened grass to make a comfortable sleeping spot. Humans get goosebumps when cold or scared, a reflex that made fur stand up in our hairier ancestors, providing insulation or making them look larger to threats. We yawn when tired, a behavior whose original function is still debated, but clearly inherited from deep in our mammalian past. These behaviors no longer serve their original purpose, but they persist because they're not harmful enough to be selected against. They're echoes, behavioral fossils preserved in our everyday lives. Horizontal gene transfer complicates the tree of life. In bacteria and archaea, evolution doesn't just happen through inheritance from parent to offspring. Genes can be transferred horizontally, from one organism to another, even across species. A bacterium might absorb DNA from a dead neighbor or receive genes from a virus. This horizontal gene transfer allows bacteria to evolve rapidly, sharing beneficial traits like antibiotic resistance across populations. It blurs the neat branching tree of life, creating a more web-like pattern at the microscopic level. For complex organisms like animals and plants, horizontal gene transfer is rare, but it happens. Some genes in the human genome came from viruses. Evolution, it turns out, is messier and more creative than we once thought, borrowing genes wherever they're useful. The evolution of flowering plants transformed Earth. Around 140 million years ago, flowering plants, or angiosperms, appeared. Before them, the world was dominated by ferns and conifers. But flowering plants had advantages. They reproduced faster, attracted pollinators with colourful flowers, and protected seeds in fruits that animals would eat and spread. Within tens of millions of years, flowering plants came to dominate terrestrial ecosystems. They co-evolved with insects, birds, and mammals, creating intricate relationships of pollination and seed dispersal. Today, flowering plants make up about 90% of all plant species. They transformed landscapes, shaped climates, and provided food and habitat for countless animals. The world you see, green and blooming, is largely the product of this evolutionary innovation. Evolution is not just about genes. For most of evolutionary history, the focus was on genes, DNA sequences, the code for traits. But scientists now understand that evolution also involves changes in how genes are expressed. This is the field of epigenetics. Chemical modifications to DNA, like methyl groups, can turn genes on or off without changing the underlying sequence. Some of these modifications can be passed to offspring, influencing their traits. This means environmental experiences, like diet or stress, can affect descendants. Epigenetics adds a layer of complexity to evolution, showing that inheritance is more than just DNA. It's also about how that DNA is packaged, marked, and read, adding nuance to the story of heredity. The Baldwin effect links learning and evolution. If an organism learns a beneficial behavior during its lifetime, can that somehow influence evolution? Not directly. Learned behaviors aren't inherited. But the Baldwin effect suggests a subtle connection. If learning a behavior helps survival, natural selection might favor genetic changes that make that behavior easier to learn or even instinctive. For example, if early humans learned to use tools, individuals who learned faster or had better dexterity would have advantages. Over time, genetic changes supporting tool use would spread. Learning doesn't cause evolution, but it can guide it, creating environments where certain genetic traits become advantageous. It's a bridge between behavior and biology, culture and genetics. Evolution shaped our immune system. Your immune system is a product of millions of years of evolutionary warfare between hosts and pathogens. Bacteria, viruses, and parasites constantly evolve to infect us. In response, our immune systems evolved to recognize and fight them. This is an ongoing arms race. Pathogens evolve to evade detection. Immune systems evolve better detection methods. The result is an incredibly complex system that can recognize millions of different invaders, remember past infections, and adapt to new threats. Some immune genes, like those in the MHC complex, are among the most variable in the human genome, because diversity helps populations resist a wider range of diseases. Your immune system is not fixed. It's an evolutionary battlefield, shaped by ancient struggles and still adapting today. Evolution of flight happened multiple times. Flight is one of evolution's most spectacular achievements, and it evolved independently at least 4 times. Insects were the first to fly, over 300 million years ago. Pterosaurs, extinct flying reptiles, took to the air around 220 million years ago. Birds evolved flight from small feathered dinosaurs about 150 million years ago. And bats the only flying mammals, evolved flight around 50 million years ago. Each group evolved wings from different structures. Insect wings are outgrowths of the body wall. Pterosaur wings were supported by an elongated fourth finger. Bird wings are modified arms with feathers. Bat wings are hands with skin stretched between elongated fingers. Same solution, 4 different paths. Evolution's creativity on display. The evolution of photosynthesis changed the planet. Photosynthesis, the process plants use to convert sunlight into energy, evolved over 2 billion years ago in cyanobacteria. This innovation had world-altering consequences. Before photosynthesis, Earth's atmosphere had little oxygen. Cyanobacteria released oxygen as a waste product, and over millions of years, oxygen accumulated, transforming the atmosphere. Or this allowed the evolution of complex life that breathes oxygen, including you. Photosynthesis also created food chains. Plants capture sunlight and turn it into chemical energy. Herbivores eat plants. Carnivores eat herbivores. Almost all life on Earth depends, directly or indirectly, on photosynthesis. It's evolution's greatest energy innovation, powered by sunlight, driving the entire web of life. Evolutionary mismatches cause modern health problems. Our bodies evolved for environments very different from the modern world. This mismatch between our evolved biology and current lifestyles causes many health issues. We evolved craving sugar, salt, and fat because they were rare and valuable. Now they're everywhere, contributing to obesity and heart disease. We evolved to be active, walking miles daily. Now many people sit for hours, leading to metabolic problems. Our stress responses evolved for short-term physical threats, not chronic psychological stress, leading to anxiety disorders. Understanding these evolutionary mismatches helps explain why modern life can feel at odds with our bodies. We're Stone Age minds and bodies navigating a 21st century world, and the mismatch shows. Evolutionary constraints explain imperfections. If evolution optimizes organisms, why are there so many flaws? The answer is constraints. Evolution can only work with existing structures. It can't redesign from scratch. The human eye has a blind spot because the optic nerve passes through the retina, a quirky arrangement inherited from our vertebrate ancestors. The human throat is our crossroads for breathing and swallowing, leading to choking risks because it evolved from fish ancestors with different anatomy. Males have nipples because the developmental program for bodies is shared between sexes, and it's easier to give everyone nipples than to suppress them in males. Evolution is a tinkerer, not an engineer, and the result is bodies that work but bear the scars and compromises of their evolutionary history. Gene flow connects populations. When individuals move between populations and breed, they carry genes with them. This gene flow can introduce new genetic variation, preventing populations from becoming too distinct. It also homogenizes populations, reducing differences. If gene flow is frequent, populations evolve together, staying similar. If gene flow is rare or stops entirely, populations diverge, potentially becoming separate species. Gene flow is evolution's connector, linking populations across space. In humans, migration and interbreeding have always mixed genes, ensuring that despite superficial differences, all humans remain one species. Gene flow reminds us that populations are not isolated. They're part of larger networks, constantly exchanging genetic information. Evolution shaped human language. Language is uniquely human, at least in its complexity. How did it evolve? likely gradually, building on communication systems inherited from primate ancestors. Early humans who could communicate more effectively, warning of danger, coordinating hunts, sharing knowledge, had survival advantages. Mutations affecting brain structure, vocal cords, and tongue control would be favored if they improved communication. Over hundreds of thousands of years, language became more complex, allowing abstract thought, storytelling, and culture. Language didn't just help humans survive, it transformed how we think, enabling us to imagine the past and future, cooperate in large groups, and pass knowledge across generations. Language is evolution's gift, shaping not just how we speak, but how we think. Evolutionary developmental biology reveals deep connections. Evo studies how changes in development lead to evolutionary change. It's revealed that very different organisms share similar developmental genes. The HOX genes, which control body segment formation, are found in flies, fish, mice, and humans. A mouse HOX gene can function in a fly, producing similar effects despite millions of years of separation. This shows that evolution often works by tweaking when and where existing genes are active, rather than inventing entirely new genes. Small changes in developmental timing or location can produce dramatic differences in adult form. A longer growth period might produce a larger brain. A shift in gene expression might move a limb. Evo shows that evolution doesn't just shape traits, it shapes the recipes that build traits. Natural selection can be observed in real time. Evolution isn't just a historical process, it's happening now, observable in our lifetimes. Scientists have documented natural selection in wild populations. In the Galapagos, during droughts, finches with larger beaks survived better because they could crack tougher seeds. In England, peppered moths evolved darker coloration during industrialization because pollution darkened trees, and dark moths were better camouflaged. After pollution controls, light moths became common again. In Trinidad, guppies evolved different coloration and reproductive strategies depending on predator presence. These examples show evolution is real-time, responsive, and observable. It's not a theory from dusty books. It's happening around us, in every environment, every generation. Evolution explains antibiotic resistance in bacteria. When antibiotics were discovered, they seemed like miracle drugs. But bacteria evolve quickly. In any population, a few bacteria might have random mutations that confer slight resistance. When antibiotics are used, susceptible bacteria die, but resistant ones survive and multiply. Over time, the population shifts. Resistance spreads, especially when antibiotics are overused or misused. Today, antibiotic-resistant bacteria are a major health threat. This is evolution in action. Natural selection favoring resistant strains. Understanding evolution helps us develop strategies to slow resistance, using antibiotics wisely, rotating drugs, and researching new treatments. Evolution isn't just a historical curiosity, it's a practical challenge we face every day in medicine. The Red Queen hypothesis explains constant evolution. In Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass, the Red Queen tells Alice, "It takes all the running you can do to keep in the same place." This metaphor describes evolution. Species must constantly evolve just to maintain their relative fitness, because their competitors, predators, and parasites are also evolving. If prey evolve better defenses, predators must evolve better attacks just to keep up. If hosts evolve better immunity, parasites must evolve better evasion. There's no finish line, No moment of perfect adaptation, because the environment, shaped by other evolving species, is always changing. The Red Queen hypothesis explains why evolution never stops, why species can't rest on past success. In the evolutionary race, standing still means falling behind. Evolutionary game theory models strategic behavior. Evolution isn't just about physical traits, it's also about strategies, how organisms behave in competitive or cooperative situations. Evolutionary game theory uses mathematical models to predict which strategies will be favored by natural selection. For example, in conflicts, should an animal always fight, always flee, or do something in between? The answer depends on what others are doing. Strategies that do well against common opponents will spread. This framework helps explain behaviors like cooperation, aggression, and mating displays. It shows that evolution doesn't just shape bodies. It shapes decision-making, favoring strategies that maximize reproductive success in social and ecological contexts. Evolutionary theory informs agriculture. Humans have been using evolutionary principles for thousands of years, even before Darwin. Selective breeding of crops and livestock is artificial selection, choosing which individuals reproduce based on desired traits. Farmers saved seeds from the best plants, bred the strongest animals. Over generations, they transformed wild species into domesticated ones. Corn was bred from a grass called teosinte, dogs from wolves, chickens from jungle fowl. Modern agriculture still relies on these principles, now enhanced by genetic knowledge. Understanding evolution helps breeders predict outcomes, avoid inbreeding, and create varieties suited to specific environments. Agriculture is applied evolution, shaping life to meet human needs. The evolution of cooperation is a puzzle and a triumph. Cooperation seems counterintuitive from an evolutionary perspective. Why help others when you could prioritize yourself? But cooperation is everywhere, from bacteria forming biofilms, to wolves hunting in packs, to humans building cities. Cooperation evolves when the benefits of working together outweigh the costs. Kin selection, where helping relatives spreads shared genes. Reciprocal altruism, where today's help is tomorrow's reward. Group selection, where cooperative groups outcompete less cooperative ones. Humans are ultra-cooperators, able to coordinate with strangers in massive societies. This ability, shaped by evolution in social environments, is perhaps our greatest strength. Cooperation is not weakness or charity. It's an evolutionary strategy, as powerful as competition. Time sixes. Evolution shaped our fear responses. Why do we fear snakes, spiders, and heights more than cars or electrical outlets, even though the latter are more dangerous? Our fears are evolutionary hangovers. For millions of years, venomous snakes, spiders, and falls were serious threats. Those who feared them and avoided them survived. Those who didn't. Natural selection favored brains wired to fear ancient dangers. Cars and outlets are too new for evolution to have shaped specific fears. Our brains still respond to the threats our ancestors faced, not the ones we face now. This mismatch is why phobias of snakes and spiders are common, while phobias of cars are rare. Evolution shaped our emotions for a world that no longer exists. Punctuated equilibrium explains fossil patterns. For a long time, scientists expected the fossil record to show gradual, continuous change. But often, it doesn't. Instead, species appear suddenly in the fossil record, remain unchanged for millions of years, then disappear or are replaced. This pattern, called punctuated equilibrium, was highlighted by paleontologists Niles Eldridge and Stephen Jay Gould. They argued that evolution happens in bursts, often during speciation events when populations are small and isolated. Then, once a species is established, it remains relatively stable, not because evolution stops, but because large, widespread populations change slowly. Punctuated equilibrium doesn't contradict Darwin. It adds nuance, showing that evolution's pace varies, sometimes gradual, sometimes rapid, shaped by population dynamics and ecological opportunity. Evolution shaped the structure of ecosystems. Ecosystems aren't random collections of species. They're shaped by evolution. Predators and prey, plants and pollinators, parasites and hosts, all have co-evolved, their relationships refined over millions of years. Food webs, nutrient cycles, and energy flows are products of countless evolutionary interactions. When a species goes extinct or a new one invades, the ecosystem shifts, sometimes dramatically. Understanding evolution helps ecologists predict these changes, manage ecosystems, and restore damaged habitats. Conservation isn't just about saving individual species. It's about preserving evolutionary processes, the relationships and interactions that sustain ecosystems. Evolution is the architect of nature's complexity, and ecosystems are its blueprints brought to life. Evolutionary medicine explores the origins of disease. Why are we vulnerable to disease? Evolutionary medicine asks this question. Some diseases result from evolutionary trade-offs. Sickle cell anemia persists because one copy of the gene provides malaria resistance. Inflammation helps fight infections but can become chronic and harmful. Fever, nausea, and pain are often defensive responses, not diseases themselves. Understanding the evolutionary origins of symptoms helps doctors decide when to treat and when to let the body's defenses work. Evolutionary medicine also explores why modern diseases like diabetes and heart disease are so common. Often, they result from mismatches between our evolved biology and modern environment. Evolution doesn't make us invincible. It makes us adapted to the past, and the past isn't always a good fit for the present. The evolution of sex determination varies widely. In humans, sex is determined by chromosomes, XX for females, XY for males. But this isn't universal. In birds, it's reversed. Males have matching chromosomes, females don't. In some reptiles, temperature during egg incubation determines sex. Warm temperatures might produce females, cool ones males. In some fish, individuals change sex during their lives, from female to male or vice versa, depending on social conditions. In bees, females develop from fertilized eggs, males from unfertured ones. These diverse systems evolved independently, each solving the problem of reproduction in different ways. Evolution doesn't have one solution for sex. It has many, each tailored to the ecological and developmental context of the organism. And now, as our journey through deep time gently comes to rest, let the world around you soften. We've traveled across billions of years, from the first flicker of life in ancient oceans to the intricate tapestry of existence that surrounds you today. We've seen how small changes, repeated across generations, sculpted fins into limbs, scales into feathers, simple cells into thinking minds. We've witnessed the power of time, chance, and selection to transform life in ways both subtle and profound. You've heard the story of your own origins, written not in words but in fossils, in DNA, in the very structure of your body. You are not separate from this story. You are part of it, a living chapter in an unfinished book that began billions of years ago and continues still. Somewhere right now, a mutation is occurring in a cell. A finch is choosing a mate. A population is adapting to a changing world. Evolution does not rest. It flows like water, shaping and reshaping life in response to endless pressures and possibilities. You carry within you the legacy of every ancestor who survived, every organism that passed the test of existence and handed its genes forward. You are the product of unbroken success, stretching back to the beginning of life itself. So wherever you are, let yourself rest now. Let your breath slow. Let your thoughts drift away, like leaves on a gentle current. The story of evolution is vast, but you don't need to hold it all. Just let it remind you of this. You are connected. Connected to the past, to the present, to every living thing. You are a miracle of time and change, shaped by forces older than mountains, more patient than oceans. Sleep well, and thank you for wandering with us.